Hi friends! Welcome back to Disabled in Nature, where we talk about all things that are disabled in nature, and sometimes we might even go outside. Today I want to talk about a topic that I've been seeing going around the internet lately, and that is people asking, why would you use a wheelchair when you could walk? If you're new here, hi, my name is Marissa. I am a full-time power wheelchair user, but I wasn't always. I have a progressive muscle condition called FSH, muscular dystrophy, and that basically means that I've been losing muscle tone throughout my body over time. This started with affecting my face and my upper arms, but has moved down into my core and my leg muscles, impacting my ability to walk. I want to make this video for anyone that is putting off getting a mobility aid. I think that there's a lot of discourse around the internet that says that, like, oh, if you can still walk even just a little bit, you don't deserve to use a wheelchair, or you don't need one, or you look fine, you can push through it. I wanted to make this video for anyone that feels that way and tell you that that's bullshit. That's incorrect. Mobility aids like wheelchairs and walkers are wonderful tools that I wish I would have convinced myself it was okay to use sooner. I think that there is a sense of misplaced pride that comes along with having a progressive condition that slowly takes abilities away from you. Rather implicitly, I was taught growing up that wheelchair or not walking anymore meant failure. And so because of that, I put off using a wheelchair for a really, really long time. There were many years, starting in high school through to the time I was a graduate student and I finally got my first wheelchair, that I lived a limited life. I didn't do the things that I used to love because I couldn't, because they were exhausting and painful. I could technically still walk. If you describe walking as putting one foot in front of the other and being able to get from point A to B, I could technically still walk between the ages of 16 and 22. Because of this rhetoric that society had ingrained in me, that walking is everything, that walking is the goal, that walking, no matter how exhausting or painful, is a badge of pride. No matter what it puts you through, appearing more able-bodied is what you should shoot for. And I wish I could go back and slap myself across the head, because knowing what I know now, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I think that this is the mindset that we have to shake. Because if I had gotten a mobility aid sooner in my life, I wouldn't have missed out on social experiences in college. I wouldn't have had to have lost all of those physical experiences that I loved doing, like, going shopping at the mall with my friends or walking my dogs with my husband. I would never have had to lose those things, because guess what? That's what my wheelchair gave back to me. And I want to say that if you're someone who's gone through injury, or especially if you're someone with a progressive condition and you're resisting using whatever mobility aid that might be, whether it's a wheelchair or a cane if you're losing your vision, hearing aids if you're losing your hearing, I would encourage you to cast off the stigma that you feel, because it is so worth it. By the time I was 20 years old, I really should have transitioned into a wheelchair full-time. It would have made my life so much easier, but I resisted because I felt that that would make me disabled. And I was still at the point in my life where I had not really begun to shake off the internalized ableism that I held for myself, and I thought that would be bad. In fact, when I got my first internship out of college at the zoo, I knew I was going to need some kind of device to help me get around, because I couldn't walk that far all day, every day. I finally broke down and I sent this really emotional email to my parents about acceptance, about how it's not about giving up, it's about doing what you need to do to move forward. Something like that. It was really dramatic. But even then, I was still overcoming the internalized ableism in myself, and the voices that I heard in society that says, oh, it's not time yet. You don't need that yet. That was a lot of the rhetoric that I was hearing, and that, it wasn't time. You weren't disabled enough. When I finally started using a wheelchair, it opened up so many doors for me, literally and metaphorically. I love to open doors with my wheelchair. You just ram right into them. It's very fun. And so I wanted to make this as just a little message to anyone that's considering getting a mobility device, anyone who's struggling with it emotionally, anyone who thinks that they will become less than or that it's a sign of failure because they're no longer walking. Walking isn't everything. Once I accepted where I was and I stopped walking and I embraced my wheelchair, I became exponentially happier with my life. Even though I could technically still walk, it wasn't worth it. And I think that's what people don't realize is that it's okay for it to be not worth it. It's okay to use a wheelchair because walking is painful or walking is exhausting or walking is just really, really hard or walking is dangerous. I can't really walk anymore. I can get maybe, 15, 20 feet if I'm holding on to something or someone. But at this point, my walking days are essentially over, and I've been a wheelchair user for about 4 years now, so it was a relatively quick decline from the time that I started using a wheelchair and I could still walk to the point where I was still using a wheelchair but couldn't really walk anymore. And I wish it had been longer. I wish I had started using a wheelchair far earlier than I did. I missed out on so much in my late teens and early 20s because I thought, it's not time for me to get a wheelchair yet. Wouldn't using a wheelchair be horrible? Using a wheelchair is fun. It's fun. And I think that a lot of times people see the wheelchair as an alternative to walking. But for someone who needs one, or feels they're on the verge of needing one, or has needed one for a while and is in denial and is not using it, for that person, the wheelchair is an alternative to missing out. My wheelchair is not an alternative to me having a completely functioning abled body. It's an alternative to me being confined to my couch. People use a term a lot, confined to a wheelchair, and I hate that because my wheelchair is my freedom. I'm looking over there because that's where it is. It's parked right there. My wheelchair is my freedom, and the concept that I could ever be confined to it is silly to me. Without it, I would be confined to my couch, to my bed, to my home. Before I started using a wheelchair, I had to ration my energy for everything. Simply getting up to go to the bathroom was an exhausting task that I would have to ration throughout the day. I would have to decide, am I going to cook dinner or am I going to clean the kitchen? A lot of times, either of those options leaving me down for the count for the rest of the night because standing and walking was just so incredibly exhausting. And so even though, yes, I could technically still do it when I started using a wheelchair full time, my wheelchair provided me an excess of energy that I hadn't seen in years. And I was like 23. I should have still been in the prime of my energy, but my perception of walking being the prideful option kept me from experiencing the joy that I do now with all the things I can do now that I use a wheelchair. So I just wanted to leave that as some food for thought for people. If you're going through this journey, it's certainly a journey, and it took me a really, really long time to work my way through it. And if I would have seen something like this, maybe I would have done something differently sooner, Well, thanks for watching, for listening. If you liked the video, leave a comment. Let me know about your stories with mobility aids. Are you struggling? Do you love your wheelchair? Do you have a complicated relationship with it? Let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling content. And don't forget to get outside. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.